Hello everyone, welcome to week 3 of our SHSAT training course. So the math topic for this week is going to be decimal and percent conversions. So the first step is to define concretely what are decimals and percentages. So decimals are basically ways to express or like fractions as sums of powers of a tenth. So 1/4 is equal to 2 times 1/10 plus 5 times 1 over 100, which is just 5 times 1 over 10 squared. And so that's equal to 0.25, and you can see that the 2 there is how many tenths there are, and the 5 is how many hundredths there are, and it would continue. So if there was like another digit after, it would be the amount of thousandths, and then the 10,000ths, and so on. And percentages are ways to express fractions as parts of 100. So for example, 1 over 100, it would just be 1%. 1/2, the way you would get that into a percentage is you would first write it as out of 100. So 1/2 equals 50 over 100, and that's equal to 50%. And there's a pretty simple way to get from decimals to percentages. So basically, if you have a decimal like 0.37, that's equal to 37%, because all you have to do is move the decimal point back 2 spaces. So like 0.2 equals 20%. Because you would do 0.2, if you move it back once, it becomes 2, and then you move it back again, which is sort of just like adding a 0, and so it becomes 20%. So now let's look at some example problems. So the first is, we see this pie chart, which shows us percentages of how many, what percentage of the people in Center City get to work in different ways, and we need to find how many more people walk as compared to the people that ride their bicycles. So see that 22% of the people walk and 4% ride their bicycles. And if you remember from before, 22% is equal to just 22 over 100, and 4% is equal to 4 over 100. So and there's 15,000 total people. So the answer would just be 22 over 100 times 15,000 minus 4 over 100 times 15,000. So, if you solve this, the zeros cancel here. So you get 22 minus 4 times 1,500, times 150. And so just 18 times 150 equals 3,000. So the answer choice would be D, 3,000. That's how many more people walk than ride their bicycle to Central City. So for another question, the decimal 0.06 can be written as a fraction x over 50. So what is the value of x? So this is sort of just a conceptual question to further understand what decimals are. So what 0.06 really is it's 0 times 1/10, because the 10th digit is 0, and plus 6 times 1 over 100. So it's 0 times 1/10 plus 6 times 1 over 100. So obviously 0 times 1/10 is just 0, so 0.06 equals 6 over 100. So we have 6 over 100 equals x over 50. Well, we know that 6 over 100 can be reduced because 6 and 100 are both divisible by 2. So 6 over 100 equals 3 over 50, because we just divide the top and the bottom both by 2. So x over 50 equals 3 over 50, x equals 3. So that's going to be the final answer. So what is the value of x? We know x is 3. And just one more question. So Carlos tossed a paper cup in the air 50 times and found that the probability of it landing on its side was 72%. If he tosses the cup in the air 150 more times, what's the total number of times the cup's going to land on its side? So we know that 72% of the time the cup is going to land on its side. And how many times does he toss it in total? Where they sort of want to trick you here. So he tosses it 50 times originally, and then he tosses it 150 more times. So he's actually going to toss it a total of 200 times. So the answer would just be 72% of 200, which is just 72 over 100, because that's what 72% means, times 200. So if we cancel this, we get 72 times 2 equals, so 72 times 2 equals 144. That's the total number of times they can expect the cup to land on its side, because the probability of it landing on its side is 72%, and he tosses it a total of 200 times. So the answer would be G here, it's 144. So there's one more important thing about percentages to know, and that's percent increase or decrease. And basically that would be like they give you two sort of values, and you want to see like what the percent increase from the first to the next is. So there's a general formula for that. The formula would be like the new value minus the original value divided all by the original value times 100. So for example, if you have like a value 1 and then it becomes 2, that's a percent increase of 100, because 2 minus 1 over 1 times 100 is 100%. So we're going to do one example problem just to further like reinforce this. So the table above shows the number of cats per family in 100 households in the Blaine neighborhood. By what percentage is the number of families with 1 cat greater than the number of families with 2 cats? So basically we want to compare the number of families that have 1 cat to the number of families that have 2. So basically it's like by what percent increase is there like is there the amount of families with 1 cat compared to 2? So basically like the original value would be the amount of families with 2 cats, and the new value would be the families with 1 cat, and we want to compare that. So if we plug in our formula, you get the answer is 42 minus 35 divided by 35 times 100, which is 7 over 35 times 100, which is 1/5 times 100, which equals 20. So that's going to be a 20% increase by our formula. So the answer would be 20%, which here is answer choice D. So yeah, that's about it for percent conversions and decimal conversions. As always, if you have any questions, feel free to ask them in the comments, and we'll see you next week.